morning, everyone. Welcome to TGCon Live. This is the second round of sessions. We will begin in just a moment, but I wanted to alert you to a few housekeeping items. For the best viewing experience, we recommend that you go into theater mode. This is found by clicking the theater mode button on your screen. Then you'll have access to the polls and the questions and the presentation all in one screen. If you do experience audio or video issues, please click the support tab in the top right corner of your screen and select Get Help. They are very on it today, so please take advantage of that. I would like to direct your attention to the chat box. I see many of you already putting in your welcome and greetings. Thank you for that. Please use that chat function to type in any questions you have for our guest speakers, and we will get through as many audience questions as we can after the presentation. Please also take the time to fill out the poll questions, which can be found using the poll tab next to the chat function. So after the session, we would also appreciate you taking the time to fill out the session survey using the link found below the presentation information. All right, let's get started. So welcome to today's session, Automating Quality Processes. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Amanda Torbett and Matthew Leach. Amanda is a senior account executive here at TraceGains, and Matthew Leach is the QMS supervisor for Bellisio Foods. Amanda, thanks for joining us today. The floor is yours.
All right, absolutely. So let's see. It looks like I just took control, right? Can you guys, is my screen moving?
You're all good, Amanda.
All right, perfect. So like Rachel said, hey everyone, I'm Amanda Torbett. Thanks for joining today to learn more about quality management and TraceGains. Matthew and I have a great presentation to show you guys. So as Rachel said, I have been here at TraceGains for over 10 years. And just so you guys know, my background is in process manufacturing. So when I first came to TraceGains, we had supplier management and supplier compliance, which are excellent products. I was super elated when we decided to help manage processes on the plant floor, and we developed a module called quality management. So this module helps us do lots of things. When we look at this screen right here, we eliminate paper on the floor, we eliminate data uncertainty, and we help all of your processes. We eliminate the manual process and help automate them through workflows, logs, and gathering data and giving you real-time feedback. So what we're going to talk about today is, how you guys can be more productive by using quality management, centralizing all your data, having this process automation. So these are really kind of 4 different parts that are built into quality management, but we're going to talk a lot about change control and workflows, and how you can use quality management to manage your change control and documentation processes. So when we look at, the module as a whole in TraceGains, we can help you guys identify issues, produce them, roll things out to the floor. And this is really part of the piece that sets TraceGains apart from any other company out there, because there's a lot of quality management tools. However, when you're looking at managing everything from your suppliers and items that you're buying, and you're pushing things out to your plant floor, and you want to make sure that you're not having to dump finished good lots, and you want to make sure that everything's documented, including when you're releasing new specifications, TraceGains Quality Management is the way to go. So like I said, it's really, there's 4 different parts to TraceGains Quality Management. We're going to talk about them. It will automate your HACCP plan. It will allow you guys to run your full CAPA on the plant floor. It'll allow you guys to manage all of your audits, audit your plants internally, and issue corrective actions out to your plant floor in case there are things that you guys need to take care of prior to a customer audit or someone coming in from a government auditing body. So when we look at what can be done, quality management is, again, broken out into these 4 different parts. You have the documentation portion. You have what's happening on the floor from, collecting all your logs and your papers, your pre-ops, your miscellaneous logs, your operational data collection. We're looking at the batch evaluation from a supervisory overview, the verify and validate, the positive release. And then the last part of TraceGains Quality Management is it's going to help you guys house, employ training. Who's been trained, when were they trained, and when do they need to be retrained? So what I'm going to do today is walk through a specific example. We're going to talk about change control and how you can use workflows or the several different ways that you guys can use quality management to document things on your plant floor. So when we look at documentation, we actually have authoring built right into quality management. So you can write your documents. It'll house and hold everything that's internal to your business, whether it's your GFSI docs, your FSMA docs, your training docs, your SOPs, you name it. So not only can you author these and write them, you can push them out to anyone in your organization and on the plant floor that needs to see them. When you're looking at change control, you guys can go in here and you can actually write and house all of your changes, and then again, not only author them, but collect it and publish them out to anyone on the floor that needs to see it. When we're looking at, something, maybe it's a specific example. If something goes out of spec, in one of your operational data collection on the plant floor, we're looking, this is a thermometer verification, it's out of spec. So what do we need to do when we look at the floor task completion part? This is where you guys are out on the floor, you're collecting data, you're probably potentially doing this manually today, writing things down, storing them at the end of a shift. And what TraceGains does is it says, actually, you can collect this real time, and if there's something wrong, it's going to flag it, and it's going to send out alerts using workflow all throughout the system. So on this particular example, it's a thawing procedure, and something's out of spec. So is there a corrective action needed? The answer is yes. So this can be done in multiple different ways, but these automated workflows can guide the steps, and the supervisor can be instantly notified that something's out of spec and needs a corrective action. We can also take the employee training portion and say, if we roll out a change control, if we roll out something to the organization, a new procedure, do they need to be alerted? Do they need to be trained? And when were they trained? And so when we're looking at things like rework on the plant floor, there's several different ways that we can handle this. So if we go back to that thawing procedure, we've identified an issue during a batch production. So there's several different steps that need to be taken to make sure that the process is remedied and to make sure all the steps are taken completely. So when we look at, the document authoring, your procedures are stored and updated. When we look at the floor task completion, we're gathering things in a task scheduler, we're looking at all your logs, and then we're pushing those out to the floor. So the first part of rework could be potentially a QA tech notices something's wrong immediately and goes into their rework procedure. So they can automatically, answer, was there rework needed? And then another field can be populated, yes or no. Was it done on the spot or not? Are there other things that need to happen using quality management? And so all of these different fields are configurable. You can add multiple other buttons that come out. And so when we look at, things like rework, the first possibility can be done right there on the spot with the QA tech, and the issue can be resolved. However, if you guys, may run your organization differently and you want to run those through multiple approvers and multiple teams, you may want to set up workflows. You may not want the rework to be determined on the spot. Maybe you want someone else or a team of people to come in, look at the situation, and decide what to do. And so the second possibility is really to funnel these issues through multiple people using the workflows that are built into quality management. So the supervisor could go in, record the rework procedures, and then go to the verify and validate tab and either release it or not. The third possibility is you can go into the task scheduler and build a whole new set of tasks for the operator to complete. And so when you click start for this rework, it'll create new tasks to be assigned to the floor staff, reviewed by the supervisors, and finally signed off on the pre-ship and sign-off tab or the positive release. So that's kind of my opening. There's lots of different things that quality management can help you guys do. And it's amazing to me the amount of paper and processes that we've helped companies eliminate. And that's why I want to introduce you to Matthew Leach from Bellisio Foods. He is going to give us an incredible customer case study on how they've implemented and used quality management, and they've implemented so many workflows. So Matthew, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, hello. I'm Matthew Leach, the QMS supervisor at Bellisio Foods. I'm going to discuss with you guys how to develop and utilize workflows within your TraceGains modules. So first, I'll give you an overview of what workflows are, an example of one of our most used workflows, so something that we use to record actual collection times, how to identify and understand what a workflow is done when you're referencing the audit trail, and then workflow logs. So that'll give you a greater understanding of what your workflows are doing sort of on a broad scale. And then some statistics from us using QM at Bellisio's. So whenever you create a workflow, this is what you would see. So there's two parts to each workflow. The first part is configuration. So we would define whatever this workflow's name is. We usually define it based on whatever its function is. The use, so that defines what area of the site that this workflow is going to run in. And then the workflow trigger, so that actually defines what would cause this workflow to run. So there's options like on record updated or when a record is created. And then our execution order is in what order this workflow is going to run relative to other workflows. So the second part, the workflow steps. So this is where we'll actually define what a workflow does. So you can base that on what the attribute is. So like a specific value of an attribute. And then our action would be when the condition is met, what is this workflow actually going to do? Is it going to send an email notification? Is it going to set another attribute to a specific value, go to a different step in the workflow? And you can actually have as many steps in the workflow as you want, and as many actions or conditions within each step. So this is just sort of an overview of that. So the name, use, workflow trigger, execution order, and whatever our conditions are and actions. So our purpose for using a workflow, we usually use a workflow to automate a specific data field that's either going to be constant or based on another value that an operator may enter. So this gives us accuracy in whatever data is being input. It removes the human error in whatever those standardized values are. And whenever we're pulling stuff for an audit, all of those values are actually standardized. So we know exactly what to search for. So that gives us some kind of consistency whenever we're pulling records. And then obviously by doing this, we're reducing the amount of data that an operator actually has to record. So this is an example of one of our basic workflows. It's just called set actual collection time. So the use is in data collection, where we collect all of our records. It's based on when a record is created, and the execution order is 1. So what this specifically does, our conditions are that the actual collection time is blank because it hasn't been completed yet. When the document was created by anything other than the task scheduling service, and then when it's updated by anything other than task scheduling service. So once all of those conditions are met, then it performs the action of setting our attribute value actual collection time to the current time. So this makes sure that everything's actually done in real time. Okay. And then we actually have a second part to this, because there's really 2 options. One is that the record could be manually created by an operator, or the record could be created by the task scheduling service and then updated by an operator. So we actually have this workflow twice. And this one, the workflow trigger is going to be on record updated. but essentially it would do the same thing, and it just has an execution order of 2 because it has to run after our initial workflow. So if we look at the workflow steps for this, they're a little bit different. So this is based on actual collection time is blank. The updated date is greater than the actual collection time. So that ensures that if an operator updates a form after the initial collection, then the actual collection time still updates. And what this does is the same thing, sets the attribute value of actual collection time to the current time. And so what I've included here is an exception to that workflow. So maybe not all forms would need to follow that rule. So this is just an example of how we have sort of combated that. So what we did is that this form has 2 values that are recorded at the beginning of the shift and then 2 values that are recorded at the end. So we've set conditions where if the first 2 values that are recorded at the beginning of the shift are not blank, but the 2 values that are recorded at the end of the shift are blank, then the actual collection time remains blank. So that way the form has not been collected. It's still available to the operator. But then once they record the final values at the end of the shift, the actual collection time will populate. And then this is an example of a workflow in action. So this is one of our forms that's actually live in our site. Once the operator completes all of the information, they can click save in the top right corner. So once they click save, their actual collection time, the date and time, they're automatically populated. So they don't have to record that. They don't have to get the time from somewhere else that could potentially be incorrect also. So it just ensures complete accuracy for that record. So all forms in TraceGains, they're going to have an audit trail, and the audit trail is going to show any changes that have been done to that record. Once you have a workflow that's actually doing something to a form, it's going to show up in the audit trail. And how you would recognize that, so all the changes are in yellow. But if a change was completed by a workflow, then the updated method is going to say workflow. If it's actually completed by an operator, it'll say manual, EP manual. These are the workflow logs. So all of the workflows that are running, you can actually go to the workflow logs and see every single workflow that's running in your site. And from here, you can see whatever the workflow results are, what the condition results are, action results. We primarily use this to troubleshoot any kind of issues if we're developing a new workflow or some kind of automation. If you actually click on one of the logs, so maybe you recognize one that is an error, you want to know more information about it, you can click the edit button and it will bring you to a page like this. So from here, you can specifically see the conditions, whether or not they processed, and then you can see each step individually, whether or not the action processed along with that. And it'll actually tell you if something was unsuccessful, it'll tell you why, or if there was an error. And then from here in the top right, we can actually directly manage that workflow. And then lastly, we have some automation statistics. So within our site, we actually have 64 workflows that are running right now. Across them, we've had over 6 million automated processes. So when I say an automated process, I mean something that an operator or employee used to have to do manually that is now automatically done by TraceGains because that data field is automatically populated. So anything from signing your name to a calculation or automated time stamps, anything like that. And then we also have over 500,000 forms collected within TraceGains. So Rachel, I will turn that back over to you somehow.
Yep, I got it. Thank you so much, Matt. Those are great statistics that you showed there. At this time, we'll be moving into the Q&A portion of the session. I do want to remind everyone to enter their questions in the chat box on the right side of your screen. We do have a couple of that have come in already, but we're happy to answer as many as you guys ask in the next couple minutes. So the first question, and I believe this always comes up, people want to know what kind of devices can be used with TraceGains. Can TraceGains only be used on a regular computer? Amanda, could you take that one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you can use or run TraceGains, for lack of a better term, I always say we're device agnostic. So you can run TraceGains on a Chromebook, a Google Pad, an iPad, a terminal, workstation. It's really up to you guys. I've had customers who've had devices laying around that they've decided to use and put to good use on the plant floor. A lot of my customers do use Chromebooks because they're, less expensive. They're pretty durable. So it just depends. And so basically you can run them on anything.
Thanks so much for that. David wants to know about specifications. Can you run batches against your own specs in quality management?
Is that for me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry, just making sure before it. So that's a great question. And the answer is you can absolutely enter your specifications, pull a specific batch, test against that specification, that batch, to make sure it's whether it's a work in process or a finished goods spec or a customer spec, to make sure that that batch is meeting the finished goods specification or the work in process, in case you do have to do some rework in the middle of the floor. And we are going to be pushing from our specification management tool a way for you guys to develop your specs and spec management and then push that out to quality management. It's on the roadmap, but it is not currently here yet. But that way you can create the spec, send it over to quality management, and your QA techs will always be running and testing against the latest specification.
And if you'd like to learn more about TraceGains specification, we are having a solution spotlight tomorrow at 2:15 Mountain Time. So I encourage you to join that, David, if you have more questions about your specifications. The next question, does QM integrate with other systems such as ERP? Amanda, I believe that one's also for you.
Sure, yeah, no, QM can absolutely be integrated with any other system. So it comes, like our other products, with standard web services and API capability. As a matter of fact, a lot of my customers have integrated it with other systems, whether it's an ERP. Some have integrated it with more of like a reporting type software. That way, if they're bringing data from an ERP and from quality management and potentially from even another system, and they want to put it in something like, a data type system to do real-time reporting, you can have all of those combined into one system, and that is a part of our standard product. So, sure.
Perfect. This question is for Matthew. Renee wants to know, what is the single most surprising aspect of using TraceGains? I think to expand on that question, what was a surprising part of using TraceGains, maybe that you didn't initially foresee using, but has been influential in your company now?
Actually, the workflows. So everything that I just presented on. Initially, I didn't directly see ways that we could use them, but we've kind of gotten creative with it. And you can essentially do anything with them. So you can set up rules for anything.
Great. Amanda, this question is for you. Michael wants to know, is QM part of the TraceGains base package, or is it an additional section to integrate? Could you speak to how our solutions are interconnected but also standalone, and provide Matthew that answer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the way that our products work, you can license one, you can license a bundle or a package. It's all based on your requirements and what your initial or current needs are. So we don't have what we would call a base package, because some of my customers run only supplier management. If you're a broker and distributor, you'd really only ever have a need for maybe supplier management and customer management as a package in our broker distributor pass-through. Some of my customers only run quality management, so I only have a couple of those, but that's all that they need. So you guys as a non-TraceGains customer can pick and choose what makes the most sense for your business, and you can always add on modules or functionality as you grow.
Thank you for that. We have one more question that's come in. We'll have Amanda address, but again, I encourage you, if you do have questions, either for Matthew or Amanda, please go ahead and ask them in the chat box on the right side of your screen. The next question is from Stephanie. She wants to know, can QM support my current cars process, and how customizable is it?
So I think that's probably a good question for myself and Matt, because he's using it. So I'll tell you from my point of view, absolutely, you can run your corrective actions on the floor through TraceGains, and again, you can use multiple different workflows. You can audit your plants. You can issue corrective actions back to the plant, or if something's going wrong, you're making, huge vats of coleslaw, and they're coming down and you do a temp check, and all of a sudden it's at 43 degrees, but it's supposed to be at 41 degrees. You can pull it off, run your corrective action, put it in the freezer, and then put it back on. But I mean, Matt, I don't know if you guys have any specific examples, or if you're using, if you're running your cars on your floor using TraceGains Quality Management.
Yeah. So we actually set up a lot of workflows that allow us to, we can actually assign cars to a specific employee or supervisor, which they'll receive a notification for that. And it can kind of bounce back between this process of, okay, so this car is open, or whether or not it's been answered. So if it's been answered, then our quality team gets another notification saying it's been answered. They can review it or reject it. If they reject it, it sends it back to that employee who can revise the car, and a comment can be left. So it basically mirrors how we did it, but a lot faster, because there's no need for in-person communication. And but yeah, it definitely helps us a lot.
Yeah, I do have one question for you. What kind of devices are you guys currently utilizing on the floor? Is it a myriad?
So we actually use iPads on the floor. Yep.
All right, cool.
Another question from Ted. He wants to know, and I think probably both of you could address this. He wants to know, have you dealt with pushback from production staff that have little to no knowledge of computers and speak little to no English? What has the feedback been after you made the switch?
Why don't you take that one to start out with?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, of course, we encountered that a lot at first. Some people that may be wary of new technology, but I think a combination of how user-friendly an iPad is and how user-friendly TraceGains is, most of them, after they had used it for a couple of weeks, they gave us great feedback, and they weren't really intimidated by it any longer. But they all use it extremely well now. So.
Yeah, and then that's what I was going to say. But I always like for whoever's using it to answer that question. I get feedback from all of my customers who are running QM, and it's basically the same thing. You're not doing anything crazy different from what they're doing today. They're filling out paper forms. We're taking all of that data and just putting it on a screen. So, there is technology. There is, maybe a little bit of a learning curve. But just so you know, TraceGains can be deployed in multiple languages. So if that is something that you feel like on the floor, it needs to be an option, then you can address that with one of us.
Another question has come in. Kurt wants to know, can quality management send alerts or sign-offs when an out-of-spec product is found?
Do you want to take that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So anytime that we have like an out-of-spec temperature or any sort of out-of-spec measurement, as soon as it happens, as soon as it's documented by that operator, we actually have it sent to our entire quality team. So they'll receive a notification with a specific area, product, and whatever the issue was, that was detected. So yes, definitely.
A follow-up to that, can or does it attach attach cars to the out of spec alert?
So we have a separate field that will say, is a car needed? And then if there's an out of spec detected, then that automatically changes to yes, so that during review, you can easily identify anything that if it's not, when it's compared against whatever your specs are, if it's listed as out of spec, you'll know it needs a car, yeah.
And then Amanda, do you have anything to add to that about out of spec management?
No, I mean, I think that's great. So,
Okay.
I mean, it obviously can determine out of spec anything, but
yeah. Well, thank you for those questions, Kurt. Hopefully that helped a lot. That's all the questions that we have for today. I do want to thank you all for joining us, and especially for Matthew and Amanda for your time. If you do have any questions for either of our speakers, their contact information is on the screen now. I also encourage you to take advantage of scheduling meetings inside of the TGCon site, where you can find them and schedule some time to have a one-on-one with them. So again, thanks for joining. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.